Om Shanti. So it's nice to be here this evening, and it's been lovely to be able to share the music, playing music, and that sort of, which I found has been a developing art of how to use sound to create silence. Because we use silence a lot in meditation, and of course how to be in a space in meditation and actually create sounds out of meditation for meditation. So I remember sort of many years ago, I had a time where I had nearly a year in isolation in the north of Australia, in a place called the Kimberley. Anyone here been to Western Australia? Yeah, somebody over there has been to okay. So Western Australia is about the size of India, that one state in Australia. And the time I was in this particular state, there was only about 1.1 million people in that state. So you can imagine India with 1.1 million people, not billion, but million. And I went to a place, I was invited to this place by a hermit or a sannyas who lived right up in the Kimberley, and I got invited to this place. And for me at this time, it was like exploring. Those days I was only 24 years old, so that was quite some time ago now. But the experience for me was like life-changing, because it was like going to a place where there was no engine, no motor cars. There was only 2 other people in this area. And in 1 year, I had just 10 visitors in 1 year. So in 1 year, just 10 people came to that place. I remember sort of after the first 4.5 months, the first visitor came, and I was so excited that this boat arrived that I ran down to the coastline, and when I got down to the water's edge, I realized I didn't have clothes on. Yeah. So for that 1 year, I lived in the nature and built my own house out of trees from the forest off the side of this cliff. And one of the first experiences I had in this place was like the feeling of, sometimes we're doing things, and we don't give ourselves enough space of just being. And for me, this was the first time I had the experience of really being, just being with the nature, being with the elements, and that showed me many, many things. One of the first things I realized that how much influence others had on me, because in that situation, it's like you don't have any other influence except your own sanskaras, yeah, and the nature. And of course, one of the things in Australia, the indigenous people in Australia, they have their own spiritual law, which is not law as in the word L-A-W, but law in L-O-R-E, and that's their spiritual law. And one of the things they say in their spiritual law is, for initiation, is to spend a length of time in the forest, or in Australia, we say the bush, out in the bush, and how you react to that experience, yeah? Because out in the nature like that, you have to deal with all the different animals, the insects, and all these things which are part of being out in the nature like that. So I remember one of the first experiences I had was like the thing of how much I really needed to survive, yeah? And I remember sort of going through this experience of very, very clearly of like, if I had just what I needed from the nature, everything would be provided for me, yeah? And it was a very, very loveful experience, because it was like a feeling that if I had just what I needed, everything would be provided. And this was like a guarantee. And I found every time I had something more than I needed, I'd get some very, very clear indication that that was outside this natural law. Because one of the things in Australia with the indigenous people, they say they only take what they need from the nature, yeah? And then the nature provides everything for them, because they see the nature as a temple, yeah? And so I had this experience, and I thought to myself, how simple is that? If we have just what we needed, everything is provided. So this experience went on for some time, and then one particular full moon, I was staring at the rocks on the side of this cliff face, and one of the rocks was like lit up like a light. And as I was staring at this rock on the side of the cliff, I was thinking, how is this like a glowing like a light? And then I could see the full moon above my head, and I had this experience of the light coming from this lit up rock in front of me on the side of the cliff, and the light coming from the moon in the center of the forehead. So I had this experience of myself as light. And I remember at the time I was so intoxicated about this that the next day I climbed up this cliff face to this rock, and when I got to the rock, I realized it was a very flat face rock, and it must have been the reflection of the moon on that rock, a 45-degree angle to where I was sitting. So I painted this rock with a red dot and a blue circle around it. So that became my focus point for meditation. So these things happened, I think, nearly 2 years before I had contact with BKs. Then as time went on, I thought, this is great to be in this particular environment. It was really like a paradise. The fresh water was coming out of the ground. It was crystal clear water. Very, very, very few people had ever been to this place. And just to give you an idea, it was 2 days boat journey to get to this place, and it's amongst about 1,000 islands of that area. So a lot of the maps weren't even valid for that, to get to that place. So after that nearly 1 year, I thought, okay, how to be amongst people and have this same state of being. And then I come back into this small village, place called Broome in the north of Western Australia. And I said to the government, I come back because in Australia, if you don't have work, you can get social security from the government until you find work. So I went very honestly into this government office and I said, I'm not interested in carpentry because my trade is a carpenter. I want to learn this spray painting, airbrush work. And so they agreed to give me benefits, payment for that. So I spent the next year and a half on a beautiful property alongside the beach, and I painted my experience of that 1 year. And nearly all the pictures I'd painted, I put this image of light inside this picture because that was my most profound experience there. And then it was the same time as in India here, we have the festival of Raksha Bandhan, which was just been last month. And in that same village in Australia, they have, on the same full moon every year, they have a festival of the pearl. You know the pearl, they call it moti, yeah? So that town is famous for this pearl. So I submitted 8 of these pictures I painted in this exhibition for this festival. And the one of this big point of light won the first prize for this exhibition. So I got an extra few $100s, which was great. But the BK who visited that village, he saw that picture, and he knew this is a picture of the soul, Atma or Paramatma Parampita. So when he saw me, he said, do you know what you're painting? Yeah. So then he started sharing knowledge of soul, of Supreme Soul, and then I started sharing my experience of what I experienced in the forest, of this point of light, and of course the both things matched. So I thought, in the middle of nowhere, you know, if Supreme Soul has to find you, he'll find you wherever you are. So that was a wonderful experience of that time of being in that Yeah. So we all have different parts, and of course my part was to experience that in the forest, and I really enjoyed being with all the animals, and there was all sorts of things that came into my place I built out of trees from the forest, big snakes, there was even crocodiles there was wild dingoes, there was scorpions, there was all sorts of things that can bite, but for me it was like an experience of being very, very present within the nature. And it was like a complete respect for the other animals, their life, their cycle of the day. Different animals would come out at night, different ones would be in the day. And it was like if something crawled on you, you just waited for it to crawl off. You didn't react, because actually the visitors I had in that place, these 10 visitors, one of the first questions people would ask when they arrived there, they would say first, "What do you do out here in the middle of nowhere?" That was their first question. The second one was, what if you have an accident that's 2 days' journey to the nearest town, and that journey you could only do twice a month according to the tides, the ocean tides. They were up to nearly 11.4 meters from low water to high water, so very, very dangerous boating. But it was like a real feeling of, I guess, the extra attention of when you moved around, you had to be very, very careful. That was almost instinct, because if you stepped on a snake and you got bitten, we say Om Shanti, no? So there was no chance of getting to the village, any help or something. So, but also in that time, those of us, when we're at that age, in the mid-20s, you're fearless, no? In the mid-20s, yeah? You can do anything. So, yeah, so then I took this gyan after this 1 year, 2 years after that experience, and then because I had this experience of this point of light, of course, my part in drama was to paint these pictures of Shiv Baba for meditation. So I was very interested with the airbrush painting, how to make this image of light look very real and like a glowing orb of light. So I traveled nearly 5 years going to different countries around the world with another Australian brother, and we made these laser show meditation experience rooms. So being a carpenter, and the other person was also handyman carpenter, we were able to build these museums and do nearly most of the work ourselves. I'd do the painting, carpentry, then the other person would do the lighting, the sound and lighting. And then in 1993, we made one of these museums in Mount Abu, in Naki Lake Museum. I don't know whether anyone here has been to that, of the guests, but so that was one of the last ones of making these laser shows. And then Gyan Srover Campus started in 1995, and because I was doing artwork, I became working in an art department there, and I've been there ever since, up to today. Thank you. And so a lot of these, the music side of things, a lot of these instruments, nearly all of them actually have been gifts, and I really feel they've been gifts from that first experience in the forest, where I felt this sound and silence was very distinct. You had the silence, and then you had sound, and then the feeling of how to use the sound to create that silence. So a lot of these instruments I've been playing the last couple of mornings, for those who've been here, some are from Brazil, from Tibet, Native American spirit pipe. They're sort of, these are a Native American flute. Of course, Tibetan bowl from Tibet and Nepal. This glockenspiel was from Brazil. iPad from China. There's a kalimba, which is from South Africa, South African instrument. Oh yes, this is what I haven't played this yet. I was requested the first day to play this for Amrit Vela, And I can assure you, if those who are here for Amrit Vela are feeling a bit sleepy, yeah, this will certainly wake you up, yeah? So this is, who hasn't seen one of these before? Wow, so you haven't been to Australia, no doubt, no? Not been to Australia? No? So in Australia, this is played by the Adiwasi, no? And this is called a didgeridoo. Can you say that? Didgeridoo? Okay, that's pretty good. Or another word is called udaki. Udaki. Now this is just a tree trunk, and it's eaten out by this dimmak, yeah? Yeah? Very natural. And on the top here, madumaki, yeah? Bit of beeswax on the top, and that's it. And this is played with special breathing they call a circular breathing, yeah? So you breathe in through the nose and you're blowing out through the mouth at the same time, yeah? It doesn't make sense in the mind, but you're... Demonstration, yes. So, and there's another thing that plays with this as well, and it's down here. These things here. These are just called sticks, yeah? So that's played with a didgeridoo. So actually a lot of these, I haven't played this for a long time. I had to clean it up tonight and get all the dust off it, but actually a lot of the storytelling is told through these, and they make many different sounds of animals, of the bird sounds, of the wild dogs, of chidia, all these type of things with this. So, but it takes quite a bit of playing because you have to keep the breath going and the cyclic breathing. So that's the didgeridoo. So you think that'd keep you awake for Amrit Vela? Yeah? So thank you. I think it's time. Sorry? These bowls? A little bit of, okay, well that's the Tibetan bowl, which is so one of the things with a Tibetan bowl, this has been a very good experiment using actually going into silence, because as you see, that's still going, the sound. Yeah, the vibration. So this will automatically take you into silence. If you're listening very carefully, that sound will go completely naturally into silence. Usually takes about a minute for that process. So it's a good experiment using for concentration, yeah? They concentrate on the sound and it will eventually take you into a space of silence. So this is a singing bowl, Tibetan singing bowl. And there's all different ones here. There's they all have different keys. And then this one here, this is the glockenspiel. So that's a very special one. It was actually made by it was a gift from one of the centers in Brazil, and they say the artist who made this was actually blind. So actually the tuning of it is perfect tuning. So they were saying because he didn't have eyesight, his hearing was very, very clear. So he used to make these, and you can see the keys of this are very rough metal, but very, very special tuning. Kalimba. So a very simple instrument, but special. Okay. Rain stick from Barish. So that's a rain stick from Brazil as well. Huh? I think chowel. Chowel? Maybe rice. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So good night. Om Shanti.